Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramandaram Devaki Paramananda Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish Dharma and punish the wicked. Let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying yoga of meditation, Dhyana Yoga, verse number 28. Dhyana Yoga is a path of meditation. All the yogas which Lord Krishna has explained in the Bhagavad Gita are the paths leading us towards the realization of the divine. While practicing these yogas, we develop certain qualities which are conducive for our realization of the divine. In this verse number 28, Yunjanevam Sadatmanam Yogi Vigata Kalmashaha Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukhamashmute. We have discussed this in the last class also. The man who is practicing yoga, in course of time, because of his disciplines, he becomes free from sins. And he is happy in constantly engaging the mind on the Atman dwelling inside the heart. So when he has reached that state of stability, he enjoys infinite bliss. That means indescribable ananda, because he is directly in touch with the reality, what you call Brahman, and the individual identity realizes its oneness with the absolute reality. That is what Shankaracharya calls Jiva Brahma Aikya. That is the embodied being loses its embodied state and merges in the Brahman. Just as the river merging in the ocean becomes ocean itself. In the same way here, what is the embodied state of the being? When the soul is attached with mind, that is the embodied state. It is the mind that carries on cycle of births and deaths for the soul. And why does it so? Because we have put into the mind lots of desires and desires, most of them unfulfilled desires. And it has become full of desires, exploding. So in order to fulfill those desires, mind keeps on coming up again and again. You can say it pops up. The desire pops up the mind. So that's why all the Mahatmas have clearly said, you have to get rid of these desires. They come in various types. In the beginning they come like allurements, like a sort of entertainment, like creating some sensation of happiness, and people are duped by these and go after them. Then they are trapped. They are trapped in the world. Probably you know that there is a saying in the river, some currents are there. they put a warning note, here don't enter the water, meaning danger zone. Because at that particular point, the inner current is so fast, it keeps on continuously circling. You can see the waves of circles at that point of danger. When a person reaches that state, suddenly he will be taken round and round and round and puts him to the bottom of the river bed. That means he is drowned. Very difficult to get out of this wind, whirlwind, getting out of this spiral waves. Very difficult. Same way, world is compared to this spiral waves. People are caught by desires. Danger zone. If they don't heed for the warnings, they are sure to be drowned in a worldly environment and lose their everything, whatever they have got. And they reach such a helpless and morbid state, most difficult to get out. That's the way world it is. So, one has to really struggle very hard. The more you are worldly, the more you must struggle. There it comes. So, we are aspiring for happiness. Everyone is aspiring, undoubtedly. But we are aspiring, we are searching for happiness in the wrong place. The real happiness is found in the realization of the divine, which is shining in our heart. So in a way, it is described, Ananda or bliss is the best definition of God. God is bliss. Swami Ramakrishna Math, one of the direct of Sri Ramakrishna, said, inside the body there is desire and greed. Inside the mind there is doubt, samshaya. Inside the world there is change, there is death. So go beyond these and you will find peace and bliss. Until you go beyond them, you can never realize what peace and bliss mean. And how to reach such state? When you have altogether resigned yourselves at the feet of the Lord, you have known the secret of a peaceful, blissful life. Complete surrendering to Lord is followed by strict spiritual disciplines. Simply telling I have surrendered to God doesn't mean that you have surrendered. So it should coordinate with your actions and behavior. God is infinite bliss, and all other happiness is finite and perishable. The happiness which we find in this world through the contact of the senses with the sense objects, they are constantly changing. Every moment it changes. Hence nowhere but in the divine can true happiness be found. Happiness that has no break. If you want to have real bliss, give up vain fretting and fuming. And instead of criticizing others, criticize your own self and try to eradicate whatever evil there is in you, and thus becoming pure and spotless, at last be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Another Swamiji, Swami Chidananda. See, all these direct disciples had unique opportunity of getting direct training from Sri Ramakrishna. the man of realization, the illumined soul, enlightened person. Eventually all these direct disciples did realize their divinity. In fact, they come as divine companions for Sri Ramakrishna to help spread the message of peace and harmony in the world, to show to the world how to practice spirituality. But people don't turn in this direction at all. Their mind is always on the carnal pit. So they are not aware of the glory of the spiritual life. Anyway, Swami Chidananda said, as the mind becomes more and more indrawn, more and more concentrated, the wild roaming of the mind will cease and you will experience inner joy and ineffable bliss. And everyone has got one's own chosen deity to be offered worship. The name of your Ishta, this chosen deity, is verily Brahman himself. Bliss will come only by taking the name. Just keep repeating sincerely. You will get the joy of peacefulness. Do japa and meditation as much as possible. Do not give it up. By practice, a taste of repeating the Lord's name will come and you will know peace and bliss. There was one friend in my Bible days. I still remember that person. Always he would, for every now and then he would say Maruti, Maruti. Maruti is the name of the Hanuman. And he was so much, all the time he was doing Maruti, Maruti. He looked very peaceful, contented, without any tensions, etc. And he passed through education very successfully and he became one of the famous judges in the Karnataka High Court. And he remained a very good devotee of Hanuman. And he is enjoying the life, not in the worldly sense. Of course, world also gives joy, no doubt, but he is enjoying spiritual joy because he is constantly repeating Maruti's name. Maruti, Maruti, that's all. I still remember him very well. Swami Akhandananda, another disciple, he said, there is no happiness in this world, no peace. How can there be? This is not our place. This is not our place. This narrowness, selfishness. We want freedom from all these. When you are free from narrowness and selfishness, you become recipient of the real happiness, real satisfaction. Once you get into that state, you enjoy indescribable peace and bliss. Swami Vivekananda, another direct disciple, he said, let us make our minds pure. Rest will be easy and we shall attain spiritual bliss comparable to nothing else in life. Our worldly pleasures are but a speck of dust when weighed against that great mountain of joy. The joy that you get through spiritual practice is compared to mountain of joy. The worldly pleasures are compared to speck of dust. How scornfully they have described these worldly pleasures, wherein people running after and losing their life. Verse number 29, Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshite Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. With the mind concentrated by yoga, he sees the self abiding in all beings and all beings in himself. He sees the same everywhere. So once he attains that higher state, he sees nothing but divine. What he had read in the scriptures, he realized it in his life. So the characteristics of the yogi established in Atman are well defined in this verse. All the perceivable universe has illusory appearance in the substratum Atman, just as an illusory serpent in the rope has dream world in a waking being. Even so, the entire cosmos, all the beings have illusory appearance in the substratum Atman only and in no one else. One who has realized Atman knows definitely that he is not the seen objects such as body, etc. He is not the seen objects, Drishya Padartha. He is not those things such as body, mind, etc. He is distinct from all these external, visible matter and things. Such a person becomes seer. He sees nothing but Atman, and that stays with him, and that is permanent experience. Verse number 30. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra, sarvatra, sarvancha mai pashyati, tasyaham na pranashyami na sachamena pranashyati. He who sees me everywhere, Lord Krishna says, and sees everything in me, he does not become separated from me, nor do I become separated from him. So how Lord Krishna directly revealing his divinity, still people don't realize. Still people could not enjoy the divinity of Lord Krishna because of the terrible impurities of the mind, such as selfishness, greed, lust, anger, and so on. So here Lord Krishna explains the beauty of the effect of oneness. The yogi who is practicing meditation according to the prescribed way realizes that same Atman dwelling in all the beings in the universe is being realized by him. One sees differences because of diverse forms, but the yogi realizes that the same Atman is shining in all the forms, just as the butter is in the milk, the thread in the garland of flowers, oil in the till. The Divine Supreme Atman dwells in everything. Everything is existing because of the Atman. That's the beauty of it. So that state, once a person realizes that state, then he is said to be enlightened. Then he is said to be illumined. Not simply declaring through the newspaper advertisement, here is a Mahatma, enlightened soul. That doesn't make a person enlightened. He has got certain features. They exhibit themselves. Without advertising, people come to know. So advertisement is not necessary at all. Why should you advertise at all? Tell me. Do serve the humanity and get away. Like that we should be humble and devoted. Ramana Maharshi once said this incident. We know that is Vithoba, that is the name of the Lord. In the Karnataka there is a place where Lord Krishna is worshipped as Purandar Vittal. It's also called Vithoba. In Maharashtra it's very famous, Vithoba. Lot of groups are there doing bhajans, bhajan groups singing about Vithoba. So there was this saint at that time, his name was Namadev. He thought he has advanced very well in the spiritual life. But the Lord knows, the Divine Lord knows that Namadev had not yet realized the supreme truth. Though Namadev was under the illusion that he had realized the truth. So the Lord wanted to teach him. That's the beauty of the Lord. Once you surrender to the Lord, He sees you always be in perfect condition of purity. Even the little trace of impurity, imperfection, God will take steps to clear them out so that you can shine in all glory. That's the beauty. Anyway, there's another great saint, Ganesha. Ganesha and Namadev just returned from their pilgrimage. There's another saint. See how the combination of all the saints at a particular period of time. His name was Gora Kumbhar. So Gora Kumbhar is a man who was pot maker. He gave a feast to all the saints in his place. And Ganesha and Namadev were there in that program. At the feast, Ganesha, in collusion with Gora, told him publicly, that is, he is telling Gora, that is a pot maker, Gora Kumbhar, but he was a great saint. He was telling him, oh, you are a potter, daily engaged in making pots and testing them to see which are properly baked and which are not. These pots before you, that is, he is comparing the saints who had come there for the feast. He compares them as pots. These pots before the saints, see which of these are sound and which is not. Thereupon the Gora said, well, Swami, I will test it. I will test which is sound part and which is not. So, this Gora Kumbhar, he took up the stick with which he used to tap his parts to test the soundness. And holding it aloft in his hand, he went to each of the guests and tapped each on the head, as he usually did to his parts. He was just putting his strike, he's striking on the head of each saint there. How it sounds. Each guest humbly submitted to such tapping. But when Gora approached Namadev, Namadev indignantly called out, you potter, what do you mean by coming to tap me with that stick? See, he had developed that ego, that he was highly advanced spiritual person, and because he used to have frequently the darshan of Vithoba, the Lord, the Divine Lord, and he used to converse with him. So he was very much proud of his realization. So he ridicules the Gora. What do you mean by coming to tap me with that stick? Gora didn't answer him, But he said to Ganesha, according to Ganeshwara's instruction only, he began to test everyone, who is sound, who is not sound, etc. And then the Gora tells the Ganesha, Swami, all the other parts have been properly baked. This one, referring to Namdev, this one alone is not yet properly baked. He is making this remark. All the assembled guests burst into laughter. But Namdev felt greatly humiliated. He was put to shame before all the people. So he ran up to Vittal, God, with whom he was on the most very close terms, playing with him, eating with him, sleeping with him, and so on. He was very good devotee, no doubt, but little boastfulness was there, which Lord wanted to take it out. So the trick he played here. Anyway, so Namdev complained of this humiliation which had happened to him, and Vittal, the Lord, he pretended to sympathize with him, asked for all the details of the happenings at Kora's house, and after hearing everything, he said, the Lord said, why should you not have kept quiet and submitted to the tapping as all the others did? That's why all the trouble has come. Thereupon Namdev cried all the more and said, you also want to join the others and humiliate me? Why should I have submitted like the others? Am I not your closest friend, your child? Then Lord Vittal said, you have not yet properly understood the truth. And you won't understand if I tell you. But go to the saint who is in a ruined temple in such a forest. Go there. He will be able to give you enlightenment. So according to Lord Vittal, the experience Namdev had was incomplete. So now the Lord directing him to go to meet that saint in the forest. So Namdev accordingly went there. What he saw? He found an old, unassuming person sleeping in a corner of the temple. How was he sleeping? With his feet on Shivalingam. He is sleeping. Namdev was shocked to see this. What? This fellow is sleeping with his legs on the Shivalingam? So, he could hardly believe this was the person whom the Lord Vittal asked him to meet, to get enlightenment. However, as there was none else there, Namdev went near the man who clapped his hands. The old man woke up. Seeing Namdev, he said, oh, you are Namdev, whom Vittal has sent here. See, he is telling him. He knows already. Come, come. Namdev was dumbfounded and began to think, this must be a great man. How did he come to know that I have been sent by Lord Vittal? Still he thought it was revolting that any man, however great, should be resting his feet on a lingam. He asked the old man, sir, you seem to be a great personage, but is it proper for you to have your feet on lingam? You're putting your legs on the lingam? And sleeping? The old man replied, well, are my feet on lingam? Where is it? Please remove yourself by your feet elsewhere. Keep wherever you want. So Namdev immediately rushed towards him, removed the feet and put them in various places. Wherever they were put, there was a Shivlingam. Finally, he took them on his lap. Namdev took the steps of this man on his lap, and he himself became Shivlingam. So then he realized the truth, and the old gentleman said, now you can go back. Bhagavan added, it is to be noted that only when he surrendered himself and touched the feet of his Guru, enlightenment came. After this final enlightenment, Namdev returned to his house and for some days did not go to Vittal at the temple, though it had been his habit not only to visit Vittal every day, but to spend most of his time with Vittal at the temple. So after a few days, Vittal went to Namdev's house, and like a guileless soul, inquired how it was that Namdev has forgotten him and never visited him, but his Lord is telling. Vittal himself went to Namdev's home. Then Namdev replied, no more of your fooling me. I know definitely now. Where is the place where you are not? That's a very significant statement. To be with you, should I go to the temple? Do I exist apart from you? Then Vittal said, so you now understand the truth. That's why you had to be sent for this final lesson. See how God made him to go through such experience so that his realization becomes complete. Then Namdev finds that everything is nothing but God himself, and there is no place where there is no God. And it's also well verified. Probably you have heard the great story of Bhagladha, the most only son of the father, Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was dead against worship of Lord Vishnu, whereas the Prahlad was staunch devotee of Lord Vishnu. So terrible conflict. Anyway, the story goes. Finally, Hiranyakashipu became very angry. He caught out his boy. Look, you are boasting so much that God, Vishnu, is all pervading, everywhere he is present and so on. If he is there in this pillar, let him come and save you. Let me see. Then he drew a sword to behead his own son. And not only that, he began to strike with that sword, that pillar, commanding Prahlad to show him if God is there in this pillar. As soon as the pillar was broken, immediately there arose the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, Narasimha, half body, half human, half animal. And it was very ferocious incarnation, and finally Hiranyakashipu was killed by him. But there Prahlada showed to the people that God is everywhere. Only because of our impurities in the mind we are not able to see him. That's what it means. And Another great feature we have seen that when these holy people, when they realize the highest truth, one most significant quality they exhibit in their life is tremendous compassion and love. Tremendous, immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion. So out of their infinite compassion and love, they go out of the way to help the people, sometimes unasked for, out of infinite love. So there are many instances to prove this fact, that how a person of realization acts out of infinite compassion and help the suffering humanity. There was a great Swami, his name was Trailinga Swami. This Trailinga Swami was well known. Sri Ramakrishna had visited him, and he was a most blessed child born out of the grace of Lord Shiva. And because of his intense austerities, he became realized soul. So once he has realized the divine glory of the Lord Shiva, he was roaming about with full of joy, peace and happiness. And wherever he would go, he would make the people happy. And wherever he would go, people would forget their stress and strain, and they will automatically become peaceful. They would be wondering, how is it? Because that person came, we are all feeling very happy, peaceful. Once it so happened, there was a funeral procession. All the mother and the relations, they were all weeping, crying, because the child was dead. It so happened that Trailinga Swami was passing through. Without being asked for, he just went and touched the body of that dead child. He was brought into life. That was ecstatic for the whole people, the mother and the people around. They could not believe how the dead child became alive again. Please note that nothing is impossible for a realized soul. He can do anything. He can undo the things. Anyway, there's another story which is also very worth quoting. There was a king who was on a hunting safari in his place. He was a very gifted marksman, but he could not seem to shoot a tiger. Despite repeated misses, the king insisted on getting the tiger and pursued it with all his might. He was trying to catch that tiger and shoots him whenever the opportunity comes. But somehow it misses. It would not hit the tiger. And the tiger is escaping and running. And this fellow also did not stop. He also kept on chasing. He wanted to prove, he wanted to shoot the tiger. So, the tiger chase finally brought the king to a yogi sitting calmly with a roaring beast. This tiger running. Afterwards he is coming and sitting near the yogi, and that yogi is Trailinga Swami. The yogi gently stroked the frightened animal king could not believe this. He was in great amazement. What? How could it happen? And that frightened tiger he is pacifying. Then the yogi, telling the Swami, he called the king and gave him his marvelous advice. His advice was, give up your fear, O king. Give up your fear, for the tiger will not harm you. God has created everything. Give love, and He will give you love. Always remember this. So, Raising Swami revealed the power of love in a simple yet heroic gesture. Later the king returned to his capital and spreading the news of the saint and the tiger, and the people began to rush to meet the Swami and take his blessings. Like that. It's not that he wanted to show occult power and wanted to draw the people towards him. That was not his intention. His intention was to help the people, to help the suffering, whether it is man or animal. The tiger was frightened terribly, so he saved the tiger. So that is the quality of a person who has realized the divine. He becomes full of love and compassion. He pours out love only. That's the way it is. So let us continue the same verse next Tuesday also. Become spiritual. We have to become. Simply complaining, I am suffering, I am like this, I am like that won't help. In fact, I was telling, God's way of treatment is different. So we are all familiar with treatment. If you fall sick, you go to the doctor for treatment, is it right? In the same way, God also treats us. And this is a special disease. This is the disease of worldliness. This disease of worldliness can be treated only by God, not by others. And how He treats? He treats the people suffering from worldliness through the treatment of sufferings. Sufferings are the treatment given by God so that he can become spiritual, so that he can be free from the sickness of worldliness. If you simply say, I want to see God, and again holding on to the worldly nature will not help you. You have to discard totally, with great humbleness. Discard everything that takes you away from God. Discard them. Use your discriminative faculty. Life is very short. Life is very short. In a short span of life, how much you can achieve. So, the mind has become stubborn because of its worldliness. I would say it has become frozen in worldliness. Frozen. You can't handle the mind at all. So heat is required to get rid of its nature of freezing. And that heat is devotion to God, spiritual practices. These are the heat treatment. So we have to take the heat treatment, and we have to be ready for taking the treatment of suffering. That means face them courageously, boldly, not losing faith in the Divine Lord, holding on to God, repeating God's name, and practicing spirituality in a humble manner. Everybody definitely has access towards God. And God is embodiment of love. Just you express your love towards Him and you will recognize how God is loving you infinitely. That recognition comes only when you know how to love Him. That's the way how it should be. So thank you. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachaduravardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Let us offer salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.